Are you going for a short on top, long on sides?
That's as an old man, yes, that's exactly what I'm going
Wise
for.
old man. Or
Old man.
what about business at the front and a party at the back?
We'll see. It'll probably be the same haircut I've had for the last 30 years, so
To
we'll
get in
crack
there,
on. But
best intentions, and go, usual, please.
yeah. But anyway, Richard, morning. How you doing?
All right. You?
Yeah, not too bad.
You're weighed
Probably
down by the weight of your hair.
weight of my hair weighing me down. Haircut after badly planned again. Haircut after this. So
We know
yeah,
how to live, don't we? Eh? We used
we
to
do know how to
constant
live.
rock and roll.
But I do have a car update for you. It's fully fixed with the right colour, so I didn't even have to buy one. So I was trying to glue a panel on, get it back in, and it wouldn't go. And then I asked someone else, and they put it on, and they were fiddling when they couldn't get it to go. And all of a sudden, they slid it a little bit, and it just locked into place. I was like, "How'd you do that?" And they went, "I don't know."
All that.
But it locked in, and they said we went and got some silicone and just ran it around the edge just to kind of hold it in place. But at the moment, all working, all fine, back to normal.
How long has that taken?
So the saga is over for now.
Fixed in
6 months of running around with tape on the car with a broken fuel filler cap.
2 minutes. The lesson learned from this is don't lose your temper and rip it off again.
Yeah. Or actually, now I know how it all fits together.
You
I
probably
can lose my temper, but I can undo it
you can rip
properly.
it off with complete abandon and not care, knowing in saving the knowledge that you can fix it.
Yeah. And it's only 150 quid part to fix it, which is ideal.
What a
So
winner! What a winner!
anyway, so today, I think I referenced just before we came on, I got called a wise old man yesterday on a call, which I found quite.
I called your granddad in the comments.
You did call me granddad as well, so I'm taking that as an opportunity to reflect on all my years of life and industry and why we do what we do. So I thought we haven't really talked about us that much. We joke around far too much with a lack of seriousness when it comes to actually what we do for a living. So I thought we'd just touch back on kind of why we do what we do, how you got into it, and start from there. So obviously the first question then, Richard, is the big why.
This feels like a bit of an interview.
It is an interview. It's a proper interview, but there's no job or no money at the end of it.
No job offer at the end of it.
No, absolutely not.
Great. Why? Interesting question. So I guess I've been doing data. I'm going to start giggling at the silliest little innuendo again. For I would say probably coming up 25 years. Started off I was a supervisor in a contact center, believe it or not, HR dream, and I was compiled all the statistics, compiled all the numbers, compiled the sales figures, compiled the conversion rate. Started basically taking core information and making it a bit more interesting, showing a bit more context to what people were doing by a number of calls they were taking, number of sales they were doing, this type of thing. And it was separate systems, so you couldn't get it from one of the systems. I just kept running with it and kept playing with it and expanding it and alongside everything else. And it got to the point where it was becoming quite crucial to people to understand what this was. But it was actually, when I said, well, where's this all? I didn't even know. I know where the call statistics come from. I know where all that came from. And I get given this report every day from this computer in the corner. And it was called Cognos that was on it. Cognos 7, going way back to the Ark. Right, and it used to spit out this stuff every day. And I used to go and do my thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started messing around with it and looking at it and seeing actually this is really quite, it just kind of like light bulb went off in my head and went, this is really interesting. And fast forward, I got asked to do that rather than what I was doing, which was a interesting move for me. So I went for it and started doing it. Did a bit of a migration to a database migration, upgraded the version of Cognos and did all this stuff, and then had an opportunity to go into contract because I kind of looked at my pathway where I was, looked at the way forward, and went, I'm not sure I'm really going to get where it opened my eyes. I suppose the whole opportunity to this to open my eyes as to what else was out there, what other opportunities, and you start looking around, going, oh, blimey, okay, this is like, but you have to either stay in the permanent world, or you have to take a bit of a punt and kind of do that. And I knew a contractor. He said, these guys are looking if you're interested. So I was like, I've been trying for a while. So I said, yeah, fine. Sent my details in. And literally within a day later, said, can you start? And it didn't even bother interviewing me. And I went, shit. Because I was in that situation and like, crap, what do I do? Because you're forfeiting this regular salary and going, but, and that was 2008. And obviously, the financial world was imploding. And
Yeah.
it was a completely illogical thing to do at the time. Well, I spoke to my family and went, you know what, screw it, let's just go for it. When nothing ventured, nothing gained. I've been waiting for a few months to try and get this opportunity, so go for it. I learned a lot the first couple of years because you're like, oh my God, you think you know stuff, and then suddenly you go, no, I didn't know half of
You didn't
what
know.
they needed to. So you get your head down, you learn, you get on with it. And then I went through different cycles of contracts, different companies, went into London every day to banks, investment management companies, back up to Birmingham, went to different insurance companies. I did a lot. I did all sorts of different tools and technologies, implemented it, supported, did all of this. But I always felt that a few years later, that I thought, well, a few years ago now. So actually, I did it for a good while, and I thought, it was an absolutely brilliant, really fantastic experience. Met some amazing people, did some really, really cool stuff. But a year, 18 months ago, I suppose, I looked at it and thought, well, what do we really, been doing these kind of bits and bobs as well on the side, looking at everything and thinking, well, what do I really do? I just kind of stick with the model that I've had. So contracts and other bits as well, kind of moving for bits and, or do I focus more on the kind of the others? Do I try and strike something out into a world that doesn't really exist? And what I mean by that is that's not it's not permy, but it's not it is consulting, but it's something a bit different. It stands out. So hence when we've always said in the first podcast we did, it was like I looked at the PR that was in the data world, looked at the people that were using the tool, and we're talking about data, people
Yeah.
that, and thought, you know what, there's a gap, there's something missing. The barrier to entry from a technology perspective is now non-existent from a cost base, from an infrastructure. You can spin up Azure cloud platform, Power BI, a tablet, you can spin that up in minutes. And you're thinking, okay, and the costs are not that prohibitive anymore. So you're looking at it going, well, why aren't more people using it? Why aren't more people using it? Why aren't more people using data? Why is this whole raft of SME type companies, but still quite big?
Yeah.
Why are they not using this? Why are they not tapping into it? And so that's when I started, looking at the flexible support option, looking at breaking it up a little bit and changing the way that data is perceived and the way that data is communicated and talking to people. And that's where I am now. That's
Yeah.
kind of the whistle stop tour with
Whistle
going
stop
into
tour.
huge granular detail. But it's kind of that's it really. And it's like I looked at it and went, there's something missing in this market. There's something not. If you don't have in-house skills, or you haven't, you're not sure where to go. If you look on Google, you're going, what on earth is this? It's just so technical. So the platform that you need, that platform, this platform, you need to go down this AI route, cloud, machine learning, data lake, and people who haven't had that exposure to that type of terminology, to that type of infrastructure, that type of content. You're like,
Yeah.
where do I go? Where do I get this? Do you know what I mean? So that's the why.
And there's enough websites out there that even I look at and you read it and you go, I don't even know what you do. It's a data tool of some sort. Someone's mentioned it. I'm reading your website and it's designed for real technical nerds, to be honest with you, to understand what's going on.
And because I came from a non-technical background into the technical world, I don't look at things the same way that somebody that's been purely technical looks at things. But I also don't look at things that is purely. I can see both sides. So that's what gave me the window to go. Actually, there's this. People in dev teams like talking to people in dev teams. People in and there's this missing connection between why these platforms and infrastructure, all these reports and dashboards get produced, and there's almost like this missing gap between communicating those and getting that backwards and forwards going. And there's always been a question mark over who actually owns this? Does it fall into finance? Is it its own entity? Does it sit into IT? For me, it's its own entity. It's strong enough to have its own identity and its own team and its own people. But there has to be that connection across.
So there wasn't you weren't one of these in school thinking about becoming data or going into IT?
Didn't even know
or
what data was at school, mate. It didn't exist. Tinternet didn't exist.
Well, you know when you're using those bits of slate with the chalk and you're
Yeah.
writing on it?
Counting rocks in the cave.
Yeah, that was your data. You just stored it on slates at the back of the room.
No, not in the slightest. I mean, I guess I've never really followed what I would say the typical path in life with education. It wasn't really my bag. It didn't really float my boat, or I couldn't get it. I didn't really fit within that method and model. I prefer learning through doing, through talking, and not through being told this is how things have to go, which is kind of sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it is kind of that's the way that I learned. So I never really got that path. It didn't really do anything.
Didn't do it.
I've always been able to think, outside the normal pathway because I worked in insurance for a long time, so I could interpret between the lines. I could look at a risk and make a decision on whether it needed a discount, whether there was an opportunity, whether it could be improved, look at a complaint, look at a claim and go, okay, and be able to interpret it. So I guess I've always had that analytical mind, that analytical side to me, where I would look at something and question it. Anything, even now, look at something and go, what's that all about? It's just not in a obvious kind of friction creating way. I'm not trying to be troublesome. I would look at something if somebody said something to me, and my first thought would be, is that right? Is there another way? Why does that have to be the case? That's just the way my head works.
Well, it's funny you said the thing you said before. It's because I'm obviously also from a non-technical background, and I think that was one of my biggest kind of differentiators when working with IT in the business, was that I was used to say I wasn't limited by my own knowledge. So if they were doing something that didn't make any sense to me logically, I'd just look at it and go, why the hell are you doing it like that? And they'd explain the technical reason, and you'd be like, well, can't you do something like that instead? And all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, well, we could. And it was always, they were very good who I worked with. I loved working with them. So I'm not knocking them, but there was always not loads of thought given. It was always, my knowledge is of this small subset of IT, or my small knowledge base, and therefore I know when we do something, this is how it gets done. Not necessarily wider, bigger picture, thinking differently or challenging that and saying, well, there must be other ways of getting to the same result that are better. And I always used to do that. It was constant because I just didn't sit there and in my head already kind of know one answer. I didn't know any answers. So I'd just come at it almost a little bit dumb, as if to go, right, well, explain to me why you're doing this. And funny enough, I used to work with a guy, Ross, who I still speak to a lot these days when he does actually reply to text messages. I'm hoping he watches this so he sees the dig. But we used to go into meetings and he used to stop people and say, oh, Richard's new at this, can you explain it to him properly? And they'd sit there and almost like, oh, we'll explain it all. They didn't realise they were being played, and that what he was doing was assessing whether or not they knew what they were talking about and were able to explain it to me. I probably knew what they were talking about, but I was quite happy to play the full sort of thing in the meeting so that Ross could establish whether or not the people explaining it to me actually also understood it past the acronyms or the...
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, look at it and be able to explain it in a way that someone who has no idea what you're talking about is able to understand it.
Yeah. And in
all the jargon and technical complexity, and just get rid of all that and just actually just explain it in a way that everyone gets.
Yeah, and working in a council, you've obviously got a series of councillors that you ultimately report into, who could be anything from 18 to 80. And you're essentially, I mean, when we built the fibre network in Peterborough, I was explaining that, I sat most of them down and explained how roads worked with cars on, and talked about a car being a packet of data essentially, and you understand when you come off a motorway onto a road, you slow down, you get held up at a roundabout or a junction. That's exactly what's happening. Why you've got slow internet at the end of it, and they come away going, "All right, I understand. So we're building a big motorway, are we?" It's like, "Yeah, we're building the biggest motorway there is." They're like, "Okay, let's do that then." But the IT guys were a bit. I remember one. I quite often repeat it, but one of them wrote a message that was meant to go out to all staff, and it said something like, "Server number P124678 is out of duty this weekend." And I was just like, "Mate, what does that mean?" He went, "Well, they won't have email." I was like, "Can you not just write they won't have email in the comms message?" Do you know what I mean? No one knows. It's lovely you're doing this work on this server. No one cares. No one understands. They just want to know what the impact on them is. The
Yeah.
impact on them is on Sunday they can't get to their emails. That's all they want to know. So yeah,
What's your story then? What's your backstory?
mine. Well,
Because obviously
mine.
you're a wise old man, so this could take a while, yeah?
This could take a while. Sit down.
I am.
4 moons and 20 ago. I mean, similar to you at school. I mean, my school, I was okay academically, but I wasn't really interested. I wanted to do sport, play sport, be a sport teacher, coach sport. That's all I ever wanted to do. Even to the point where we had computer lessons at school, and randomly, my name was the middle name of the year. So the year was split in half. So half did it in the first term, and half did it in the second. I did it in neither. Because when I was asked why I wasn't in the first, I said I was in the second, and when I was asked why I wasn't in the second, I said I'd already done it in the first, and the teacher hadn't actually noticed I didn't go to any of it. So I left school barely being able to turn a computer on. Didn't really have any interest in it at all. I remember at university, my mate introducing me to email and me thinking it was the most stupid idea ever. Just like,
Yeah, never worked.
why would you? Because back then you were waiting 3-4 days for people to reply because it wasn't as instant as it is today. And I was like, why wouldn't you just call them? Just phone them up and speak to them. Various jobs, local government, outside of local government, fleet management, contract management kind of stuff. And then this contract manager role came up at Peterborough, and they had someone earmarked for it. Internal job, and I applied, basically going, look, well, I've got 10 years of contract management experience going on. Got the job, it just happened to be IT. And that was similar to you, probably 2009, because I think I left fleet management because of the financial crash, because they weren't hiring, leasing, and putting more cars out. So I was like, I can see that's only going to constrict and become worse. So I jumped ship. And it just so happened the contract that I was managing was an IT contract. But it was also kind of the iPhone had just come out. People were talking about apps. This thing called the cloud was becoming a bit more
Whatever happened to that?
talked about and things like that. So I think I go with a bit of timing and luck that I got a job on managing an IT contract, but at a time as IT was kind of shifting and changing. If I'd have done it where we were still talking mainframes and things like that, I probably would have lasted 2 years and gone off and done something else. But it so happened that I quite enjoyed it and got into it. But I could see how limiting what everyone was trying to achieve was, because back then local government was, well, we use these 10 companies and these provide all our software.
Mm.
And I was a bit like, well, why don't we use these ones, because these ones are better? And they're like, well, no, because no one's ever worked with those ones before. It's like, well, let's give it a go. And okay, not all of it worked, but we introduced Salesforce Box. We moved from Microsoft to Google. We started using AWS for the server estate. We just trying to be different and trying to do new things and try and break the mold of everything we tried to do to change or transform or do differently was limited by the technology we had. And I wanted to remove that limitation and just say, actually, however you want to run your service, we should be able to provide you the tech that does it that way. Probably it went too far too quick. I tried to be too different, but I was the poster boy at Salesforce World Tour one year. You had to walk into the Excel Centre, you'd have seen my 10-foot face on a poster.
Did anyone go?
They go, they walk in, they see, they turn around and they walk, go get a bigger coffee and come back in again.
IT. It's
And
gonna
then
be hard.
yeah, and ended up talking for Box in America,
Yeah.
going over there, flying over there and talking for them, and then went to Berlin with AWS, spoke at one of their conferences, and
No,
just
you kept
going
it
to it. But
from me.
again,
Keep secrets from me, Dick, too.
yeah, but it was funny because it was almost like, it sounds bad when I say it, but there weren't enough characters within IT who were prepared to go and stand up on stage and tell people to try new things and do new stuff. And I was almost like the naive idiot that just went, "Oh, I don't get any of this, so I'll go tell everyone they're doing it wrong." I went to a data center conference in about 2016 and told them all they'll all be out of business in 10 years unless they change their models, which you can imagine was met with silence at the time. But I was kind of like, if all you're doing is this one tiny bit and the cloud is massive and you've got Amazon bringing in 400 new services every single year and Google doing this and these guys doing this, what's your bit of the pie? What are you going after? Are you just going to be hosting apps and hosting servers, or are you trying to expand, or are these guys just going to consume you? And
It's the same with data, though, isn't it? I suppose it's like
yeah,
if you people that can the companies that can access information to support what they need to do, whether that's managing performance of people, of staff, suppliers, clients, whether it's supporting decision making, making decisions, strategic management, all this stuff. The people that are having to maneuver stuff around in spreadsheets, shuffle stuff around, taking weeks to get anything of any meaning out of something, which by what time everything's actually moved on anyway. It's massive, and that always is really quite interesting to me. And it's like you just said with the data centers, unless you keep, that's why again is something that the approach is slightly different for me. It's very iterative, and it's kind of we work at the pace, we keep moving it forward, which sounds like it's elongated, but in some respects, if you put 3 to 6 months investment into a transformation project, but if you don't then go and keep incrementally looking at it and reviewing it, by the time we get to the end of that project, everything's shifted anyway. You have to, and that was a typical thing that I used to see in data projects, and all these statistics of people saying, oh, how many people, how long does it take for data dashboards to get out of date? How many people use it? And most of the time, it's because the stuff's got out of date. It's not up to date with what the business needs. Don't implement something, a transformation, and then go, oh, brilliant, I've got 6 months. Not let it bed in for 6 months.
we were brilliant at that. It's like, get to the end of the project, everyone celebrates, and you're like, okay, but in 6 months' time, we're now out of date by 6 months.
And you have for another 6 months. You're constantly chasing your ass,
Yeah,
trying to keep up. Whereas if you think of it and implement it in a way that you're constantly pushing, it's checking, iterating, movement. It's easier to make these incremental updates than it is to make a massive, great change
do
in
the massive
6 months.
change. Yeah.
Because by the time you've even done that, you're always on the back foot. Look at our amazing platform and our spectacular dashboard, and it does this, that, and the other. Yeah, but it's out of date. It's out of date with what we need.
Well, it was. I mean, it was even back then. The council. I think we've said before. You're asking someone to pull like an HR report for you, and they're like, "I'll get it to you in 2 weeks." And it's like, "No, I need it now. You've got all the data. It's sitting in front of you." And they were like, "Yeah, but we need to cleanse it. We need to do this, and we need to fill." And you're like, "Well, why is that not done? All of that should be there. If I want an HR report, I should have it now." And that's where we were trying to get to with a lot of the stuff. And as I say, not everything worked perfectly. I've got a lot of scars on my back of things that didn't happen, but at least it was, yeah, at least it.
Is that from something
I'm
else, though?
pleased I worked somewhere that were willing to kind of have a go and back you and try something different rather than everywhere we go now. I'm doing contracting, as you know, for someone else, and it's still who else is doing it? Where else has this worked? Where no one's willing to be the first or try something new or completely redesign the model, which is frustrating. But yeah, you said about your business. I mean, I set mine up about 6 months before COVID struck. So I came out of my last job, which was at a Salesforce kind of implementation company.
Salesforce poster boy, remember?
Yeah, stuck with them. But sadly, pretty much, apart from one person, I think pretty much everyone I knew at Salesforce has gone. In the UK, that is, not the American
They
side.
did hemorrhage a lot of people, didn't they?
Yeah, but it was. I kind of came out as like, well, IT's been all right for me. I should go into IT. So you sit there and go, right, I'll be an IT consultant. And then the more I got into it, it's more like, it's really only been this last year or so where I've kind of gone, I'm not sure this is still what I want to do. And actually, as I said, everything I wanted to do at school was coaching, teaching, all of that. I'm quite comfortable speaking to people. Although the first time I went on stage, I was a nervous wreck, and I was literally given a bottle of cold water to stop my hands sweating, so I could actually hold the microphone. I'm now quite comfortable being on stage and talking. I was so terrified almost of being called out. I was terrified of being called out by someone as being wrong, and then thinking, well, what do I do then? But then you realise actually everyone's there to learn or to listen.
Someone
And
says you're wrong, go shut up.
shut up. Yeah, I might be wrong, but I'm bigger than you. So
I'll be wrong, but I don't give a fuck.
yeah, just not bothered me. And I always used to, used to be able to end presentations with, "And this is right for Peterborough. It might not be right for you," because then no one could argue.
And you do mic drop and walk off.
Mic drop, walk off. So yeah, so that kind of side of me, I think, is coming out more and more. And yeah, I'm going to move back into what I want to do, the coaching. I've worked in obviously local government, central government, where you're not allowed to make decisions. I've been in the smaller startups. I've been in mid-sized companies. I know the differences, and also the jump from being a doer to being a manager, where all of a sudden you have to leave it behind. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. You take the best developer, you've got a great developer, he's the best at it, and the only way to promote him is to make him the head developer. But now he's not developing anymore. Now he's a manager. He's got to manage people, and all of a sudden it falls down. So that's where a lot of my focus is going. But obviously, sitting behind that is still a way you structure your days and your work so that you can make those decisions and you can drive forwards, is through the qualitative data side. So everyone's focused, and you do a little bit as well, don't you, on kind of the numbers and that side of stuff. Mine's always been, even when we were doing projects, it was always, you're in meetings and it's like, here's our project and this is how many days we've done, this is where we are on our Gantt chart, this is the thing. And I'm like, yeah, but why have you done it? What have you done? Why have you done it? Why have we chosen blue and not red? And people weren't recording that information. To me, that's the most useful information, because that's all the stuff that's going to drive you forward. So it's leadership coaching, but with a large subsection of that focuses on the qualitative data side and how you structure what you do
I
to
think
drive it.
is often a missing point with everything, because with all these, and again, this just comes back to something that I often speak about. It's like, with all this world of technology, you can have an app for fucking everything. You can have an app for an app. It's like literally, or a platform for a platform. It's like, well, at what point do you go, I don't want another chuffing platform. I need something that's going to make sense. I need, and it's too easy just to go, just get another app. I'll just do it. Like, if you're, for example, I don't know, you're looking at Netflix and you go, I'm nothing on Netflix. I'll just go and get Amazon. I look at Amazon, I'm nothing on that. I go and look at Disney. I'll go and look at Apple TV. It's too easy. I go and look at Uber Eats, or I look at, there's even within a business, there's now probably even more choice from having slamming another platform. What do we do with it? It's like, actually, if you just go, wait a minute, and just go, but you transform what you said is that is the coaching bit for me, and this is, take this advice as you wish, but it's like, it's that gap between the technology and the strategic and operational decision. Don't just go slamming in another platform. All you end up with is, I said this to someone yesterday, you don't want to end up with a massive pile of tech debt because you've not really thought out and had real considered think about what it is that you're doing. Because all you'll end up with, like, oh, we can't turn the other one off because it doesn't do this, and the new one doesn't do that. And then you're like, well, is there another one we can use to fill that? And you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. So it's that is like where you've got that disconnect potentially. It's just so easy to sign up. Oh, sign up for another subscription.
Just another one.
Another one.
Or the slightly different, you're on a diet and you're looking at your Just Eat app going, haven't I done well? I've only ordered once. But your Uber Eats app over here's got 12 orders in, and you're ignoring that because you're focusing on the data in one of your apps, not across all of them.
Always about the technology and AI is you'll never take the person out of the decision making. Or
No.
you should never. you should never take the person out of the decision.
No, and you can use it to augment your arguments on either side, and you can say play devil's advocate and argue the point with me, but ultimately it's still me that needs to make the decision on what we're doing going forwards. And I think we've touched on decision making and the fact that even when I was at Serco, they used to managing the contract with Serco, they used to like the fact that I just made decisions for them and would sign a bit of paper to say yes or no to stuff because they didn't really have that previously. Getting decisions made would be weeks.
When you were at that exhibition and I came down to see you, very kind of me, wasn't it? And
Was very kind.
I think that there's this mindset of just jumping on shortcuts to try and save time or save money or save X or do something, but actually all you're doing is you're just shifting the problem. You're shifting the problem, potentially shortcutting your way to a bigger problem, because without being completely clear on what it is that you're doing. If you are, it's like I say, if you're looking at, we're looking at going to Tableau or whatever. Okay, well, we need to rebuild everything that we've done in Tableau. And I always, well, before you do that, revisit everything. You don't just replicate what you've done in another tool, in a separate tool, because use the opportunity to look at it. Otherwise, all you'll end up, well, we can't turn that report off in that platform because Tableau doesn't do it in the same way or something like that. And it's like, you need to go that. And then if you get to that point, you go, well, is that report that critical? Can we change it or adapt it or improve it that we can move it into the new world? Yes or no? Or if not, it's going. If not, it's just going. End of. And then you get rid of that. Then you're only on one place. You know what I mean? And that, I think, doesn't happen. There's not enough leadership, thought, whatever that goes into that.
Well, you look at the big news, was it last year, was Birmingham Council, wasn't it? They'd overspent on their Oracle project by 100 million or something, because ultimately what they'd done was buy Oracle and then try to retrofit every single process from their previous system onto the new platform. And obviously, whichever agency was working with them on them had basically signed a massive change control for a lot of days and a lot of work to do that, rather than looking at it sensibly and going, right, what works, what doesn't, what can the new system do? You can jump from, even at low level, you can jump from Sage to Zero, and they do different things, they've got different ways of working. You just have to go, right, this is my new tool, it does it slightly differently to what it did before. Okay, it'll take me 3 months to get used to the new way, but that's what my system does. Don't then try and build Sage on top of Zero because you like the way Sage reported your stuff. It's crazy, but yeah, that's kind of a brief one of mine. But neither of us wanted to go into IT. We both ended up in IT.
So I didn't want to. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I found myself in a relatively technical role and a relatively, I wasn't, and I had aspirations to move up and do something different. But I looked at the path and looked at the options and went, that doesn't really excite me at all. So that's where I ended up taking the jump. And
look how excited you are now.
I know. Every day I'm literally bouncing out of bed, creaking. I did tell you I fell off my bike last weekend.
No, you didn't.
Speaking of creaking, I was going down a hill, and I go down this hill quite a lot. It's not a hill, it's more of a slope, right? But I normally go down it reasonably quick, but for some reason I wasn't. And although it was it wasn't obviously icy, but it was a little bit nippy. And so I went down this hill, suddenly got towards the end of this road where there's some concrete blocks, and I started to sort of turn and brake, and the bike poof, disappeared from underneath me.
Lovely.
And I went smashing on my side, so I've got this rather swollen hip and bruised.
You need to be careful at your age.
Later.
I'm a wise old man. I'm not actually an old man. No. That's the difference.
I don't know. It's question mark over whether I'm wise, but I'm getting old.
Getting old. So right. On that note, I'll let you go because I know you've got other stuff to be at, and we'll speak soon. Cheers. Bye.